Top of the morning to you, ladies and gents, and welcome back to another episode of Silverstones. My name is Joran and I'll be your host for today's show, where we're going to be talking about Bitcoin and is it really worth $2 million today? I spend a lot of my time online listening to different people within the Bitcoin community. I listen to their opinions, perspectives, and predictions for the future. And along the journey, I've seen price models, predictions saying that Bitcoin is worth anywhere from $0 to $2 million and beyond. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today is the high end of the scale at $2 million bucks. And is there any sort of weight behind that? I'm also going to talk about the difference between the price of an asset versus the value of an asset. I'm going to dig further into the $2 million valuation, show the math behind it, and does it make sense in my head? And I'm also going to give my thoughts on where I think Bitcoin price will go. Might even give a price at the end. We'll see. I hate giving any sort of price predictions because it's impossible at this stage to know what the heck's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball here, and there's so many different external factors that will impact the price of Bitcoin into the future. So you look at the demand for it. Are people, companies, countries going to continue adopting Bitcoin at the rate that we've seen? Are investment banks and banks going to adopt Bitcoin? Are they going to offer it to their clients like we've seen in the past and into the future? And governments, how are governments going to regulate Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? My opinion on it is that Bitcoin will be classified differently than the rest of the crypto market. And the reason for that is because Bitcoin is fully decentralized. So there's no CEO of Bitcoin. There's no Bitcoin headquarters. There was no IPO when Bitcoin launched off a public offering to customers. It just doesn't meet any of the criteria that would classify it as a security. Where you look at Ethereum, you look at Cardano, I think that those cryptocurrency assets are going to be considered securities. But again, my opinion here means jack shit. At the end of the day, it's going to be decided by the people making the laws, the policies, and governments change every 4 years. So even though something could happen next year in terms of regulation, that doesn't mean it's going to be the same thing 5 years from now. So it's impossible to predict the price of anything. But I'm just going to give my opinion on it, and you can do what you want with that. Let's talk about the price versus the value of an asset. And I want to focus on the technology here. So we know when a new technology is introduced to the world, there's a curve that it follows. And usually it takes a while for it to get off the ground. And once people start adopting it, it's kind of like an S curve. That's what it looks like. And so at the bottom of that S curve, the price and the value are usually very disconnected. Whereas when you get to the top of the adoption curve and the mainstream, the majority of people are using this technology or the asset, the price and value seem to align a lot more because it's easier to see. The market's kind of decided what the price is for this asset. But at the very beginning, it's impossible to know what the value of it is when nobody's really using it yet. So I want to give Theta here as an example of the difference between the price and the value of an asset. And I did a video last week on Theta talking about a little bit more in depth, what the technology is, what patents they have, and why I'm so excited about Theta. But in this case, I'm just going to explain why the variance here. So right now, Theta, you can purchase one Theta token for under $1. And in my opinion, the value of that one token is exponentially bigger than $1. And the reason for that is because they already have the infrastructure. They already have the technology, the patents. They just released a meta chain where if you're a company, you can build your own blockchain on top of the Theta network without their permission. So the technology here, the infrastructure is going to change the world, in my opinion, right? Everything's just what I believe. But the general public hasn't adopted it yet. Nobody's using it yet. It's not into the mainstream. And I don't know if Theta is like a really well-kept secret within the crypto market. There's a bunch of different theories on it, but it just seems like nobody's ever talking about Theta. And when nobody's talking about it, then nobody's buying it. So the demand still is low for Theta. Nobody's using the technology yet. As we progress, as people start to adopt it, I think that we'll see the price and the value align a lot more. And that's when we'll see the true reflection of the value of theta. So I just wanted to point out the difference between the price and the value of an asset, because most people see them as two in the same when it's really not true at all. So let's talk about the $2 million valuation of Bitcoin by a guy named Greg Foss. Greg is a Canadian. I love Greg. I love listening to Greg talk about Bitcoin. He's very pro Bitcoin. He's been around the block. He was a portfolio manager a couple decades ago, for a couple decades. And so he was in the bond market, he was in the stock market, options, futures. He knows his shit, and he's very pro Bitcoin. He believes in it I won't give it away here, but I'll go through his math here. And if you want to check out any of Greg's stuff, I highly recommend listening just to a half-hour chat or an hour chat. He has lots of good information, and I think that a lot of people, I've sent it to a few people that I know within the financial industry dealing in bonds and stocks, and they agreed with the majority of stuff that he said. So his basis here, his valuation of $2 million per Bitcoin is based on the global financial asset market. And that totals right now approximately $900 trillion. So that's the global, all the assets around the world are worth $900 trillion. You got stocks, bonds, real estate, cash, everything, silver, gold, 900 trillion bucks. He thinks that Bitcoin should have 5% of that global asset class, which would mean that it's worth, the market cap for Bitcoin should be approximately $45 trillion. Okay, so we got $900 trillion total. He thinks it should be worth 50 or 45 trillion right now. And if you divide that by the amount of Bitcoin that there are, 21 million, you get 2.1 million. So lots of numbers there, but I think if you put it on paper, if you can understand that in your head, it makes sense. It's $2.1 million valuation of Bitcoin based on that. And actually, he didn't factor in the fact that there's at least $2 million or 2 million Bitcoin that are lost, essentially gone forever. So I'm gonna change this formula here. I'm gonna use it, instead of dividing it by 21 million, I did 19 million. Okay, so it didn't make that much of a difference. 2.3 or 2.4 million bucks per Bitcoin. So my opinion on that is that it's very valid. It's hard to argue that, honestly. If Bitcoin could hold 5% of the global financial asset class. But the thing is we're just not there yet. So the reason for that is because the Fidelities, the JP Morgans, the big banks in the US, they aren't able to offer this to their clients. Public companies aren't able to buy Bitcoin yet because it's not regulated. So that kind of ties into, the government and the predictions of the future. But as it stands right now, it's just not possible for that to happen. So is it, a realistic prediction or a model value? Yes, it absolutely is. But it's just not possible at this stage because the majority of that 900 trillion isn't able to purchase Bitcoin at this stage. So that's my thoughts on it, is that it's valid. It makes sense. But at this stage, it's just not possible. And even with the adoption, we talked about the adoption curve of Theta. Bitcoin's kind of the same. The infrastructure around Bitcoin is built. It's ready to go. Still building, obviously. And I don't think we've even scratched the surface yet in terms of what Bitcoin will do in the future. But the general public is still lagging way behind that. And the investment funds are lagging way behind that. And so that's why there's a huge disconnect right now between the value of Bitcoin and the price of Bitcoin. I hope that makes sense. So now I'm going to give my prediction of the Bitcoin price. And believe it or not, I actually think that Bitcoin is going to go down a little bit further in the near future. And I'll just say it right now. I think that it's going to be, it'll probably go down to single digits. I don't know. There's just so much craziness in the world right now. And it seems like there's people who want to push down the price of Bitcoin as much as they can. And, you've seen the public perception of Bitcoin right now is that it is FTX. Bitcoin and FTX are two in the same. So the public sentiment over Bitcoin is low. And we've been seeing Bitcoin trend for the last year in a downward motion. And I just don't think there's enough right now. There's enough good news to kind of start pushing it the other way yet. So we'll see. I could be wrong. This could be the bottom, but I still think it's going to go down further. Is that going to change my opinion on it, whether it's worth $8,000, $17,000, $80,000? No. The technology, everything with the Bitcoin won't change. The price doesn't have any impact on it. It's just a number. And it's impacted a lot by public perception and ability to purchase Bitcoin. So we'll see. What do I think in the long term? I think it's going to far exceed $2 million in 20 years, 30 years, whatever it may be. I think that'll be, that'll look like peanuts, I think, when this is all said and done. And right now, Bitcoin's so small, it's basically just a rounding error in terms of this $900 trillion asset class. And so when there's bad public sentiment on it, it has a huge impact on the price, swings back and forth. So that's it. I wanted to leave it there. Do I believe in Bitcoin long term? Absolutely. I think it's going to far exceed this $2 million valuation over the next couple of decades. But right now, I think it's going to be going down a little bit more. And this $2 million valuation is valid, but we're just not there yet. So let me know what you think. What do you think Bitcoin should be worth today? And what do you think it's going to be worth in the next couple months? Do you think it's going to go up or down? Let me know in the comments. Send me an email. I'm always interested to see different predictions, different models, and valuations of Bitcoin. So I hope you learned something here, and I appreciate you very much for watching. We've seen the subscribers here go from 5 to like 60 now. So I guess, people are probably not listening to my advice in terms of clicking the subscribe, but I really appreciate it. Click the like, click subscribe, send this to anybody in the financial industry and your financial advisor. Let them know what I think, give them your opinion, and see what they think about it. Could Bitcoin take up 5% of the market? Should it be worth $2 million right now? Just start the conversation at least. And there's a ton of different investment advisors, investment firms who are terrified of Bitcoin right now, when I think they should be embracing Bitcoin and at least having some level of exposure for their clients, whether that's 1% or 5%. Just start, get off of zero, because the risk that you're taking on and that you're giving to your clients right now is substantial. And if Bitcoin does happen to go up by 100x in the next couple of years, and you told your clients that Bitcoin was dog shit, we'll see. I don't know. None of this is financial advice. Sorry, I get worked up when I start talking about the legacy system. But anyways, sorry to drag this on. I appreciate you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.